Glenn, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. We're super excited to have you talk about your experiences and excited for our audience to hear about it.
Happy to be here, Sagar, and looking forward to the next hour or so.
Awesome. Well, for everyone listening, I want to tee up Glenn. He's got an impressive background working with the ultra enterprise grade of customer success. Glenn is an industry veteran, been in the software world for over 20 years, specifically focusing on the post-sales motions. Today, he's working at AVEVA as running the enterprise segment and a number of CSMs supporting the largest accounts. I mean, these are hundreds of thousands, more like millions of dollars per year. And I think it provides a really unique point of view into what a strategic engagement profile really looks like for that ultra tier. So the point of today's conversation is to peel back the onion a little bit and get your perspective on the key moments in your career that have shaped that understanding, and excited to dive in here. So anything you want to kick off with before we start with your first story, Glenn?
No, just I'm looking forward to this, looking forward to sharing a bit more. The customer success community truly is a bit of a family. And the more we all share, the more we learn from each other, the more we can all grow collectively. So happy to be here and share my experiences. And if it can help someone else or in this session or beyond, I'm certainly open to folks reaching out and connecting and continuing the conversation even after this session today.
Fantastic. Well, let's kick it off here with the first story. And this is going to be an interesting one because at AVEVA, you've mentioned you sell into the ultra, industrial and heavy machinery world, right? Which is a world that many of us don't get a view into. And you told me about this, which was fascinating, which is, when you were a individual contributor and maybe even as a team manager, you would literally go to the plants, the factory floors, sitting alongside your end users, right? The factory workers and the plant managers, talking to the shop foreman who's making an airplane wing or the undercarriage for a military Humvee. I mean, I think a select few people can even have access to that. So talk to us about that in the context of discovery, right? Where if you're there with your end user, literally feeling and seeing and touching what they're seeing and feeling and touching, what is that like? What's the power of being able to ask questions and be curious right next door to your end user?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think I first want to start with this. This was post-COVID, and I know in today's age, whether it's reduced T&L for travel, for spend to get out there and see your customers, or just restrictions in general, people are more hesitant to leave their office and want to stay a little bit closer to home. So in a land far away and long ago, when customer visits were a thing. That was something that my company was really big on, getting out there and seeing how the customers in the wild used our particular software solutions and packages. What was really important, and it still is important today, and however you get here, it's important to get here, is the actual customer outcomes. So many times CSMs and we in the software business, the vendors that make the software, get caught up in the shiny new thing. We have this cool new blue button that does this wonderful thing. And all we want to do is promote that and talk about that shiny object that we've built. When you get out there and you see the customers and how they're using it in the wild, the story that you're referring to was a sheet metal plant out in Davenport, Iowa. At the time, this was going back a couple of years ago, 2016 or 17, if memory is correct. It was the largest manufacturing facility under a single roof. The building end to end was over a mile long. You had to use golf carts to get from one end to the other. It was truly impressive to get out there and see their operations. And these customers, you sort of teed it up a little bit, Sagar, but whether it was making airplane wings, or they actually, again, you alluded to it, they make the undercarriage for military Humvees to shield against the IED blasts and keep our soldiers safe. They had a Humvee that was sitting on maybe a 45-degree angle, and they had shown that they had detonated a blast in a test scenario underneath of that. And they showed how twisted and distorted the metal undercarriage was, but you could look inside, and The floor was no longer flat and level, but there was nothing piercing through it, right? If you were a soldier sitting there, it certainly would be an uncomfortable moment to experience it, but you would walk away, you would live. So truly some life-changing things that these customers were delivering end to end. Being out there at this plant visit, being able to, I won't even say walk the floor, drive through the floor on these golf carts they were driving us around on. We got a chance to stop off at different stations along the way and talk to the foreman and the actual operators and see how in the past, this was a 3-shift plant. So how they did handovers, shift 1 to shift 2. And it used to be a big whiteboard with a magic marker, and they were writing down the production figures from the previous shift and what was still in flight or progress, and maybe a safety event that had occurred, but it was singly on this whiteboard. And now how our software had helped to collect all of that, aggregate that, show it in real time, not only for that particular site of the plant, that little group of folks that were doing that one thing, but how that view could be rolled up with other shifts, with other parts of the plant into an enterprise type view to help, again, not just the shop floor, but those running it, the executives and the folks that truly had a company-wide view, helping them to see what was happening at the shop floor, and that exposing that data was just so important. And we were able to come back with a better understanding of what they were doing, so we could double down on those stories and maybe even come back with a few suggestions for our own R&D folks to incorporate additional features down the road that would be specific for this particular plant.
Wow. And talk to us about the impact that had on the engagement, where you would learn something and you said take it back to the product team or take it back to your customer success team. What was an example where that moment in the plant yielded a superior experience for both the customer and the CSM outside of the plant?
Yeah, there's been a number of those that I've had personally, and my team as well. But I think that the biggest thing there is the CSM role. The job here is first and foremost about relationships. The old Simon Sinek quote: "You don't buy you buy what." You don't buy what they do, you buy how they do it, right? So if you and I are in a contractual relationship and we have a bit of a personal relationship outside of work, we have a bit of an understanding of who we are, or maybe our family situations, or what our likes or hobbies are, it makes work that much simpler, and the connections that much deeper. So when you get out there and visit these folks, and maybe you go out to dinner the night before the all-day meeting, or you a lunch, sitting at the lunch table together, and you put work aside for the moment, that's really where you're investing in the future of that relationship. You're investing in the future of that customer. What it does is it sets you up for the ability to be that trusted advisor. The customer can realize you have their best interest at heart, that you have an understanding of what they do. You literally walked maybe not a mile, but close to it in their shoes. And you are positioning them for success as well. You're invested in their outcomes, and that's just an important word for the CSM team. So in that case, when that customer, it was growing through mergers and acquisitions and continuing to buy up other subsidiary companies and add it to their own portfolio, as they continued to buy, it was much easier to position our software in those acquired companies, and it led to a couple of really nice wins where we were able to further push our software solutions down into effectively what were net new logos and net new customers for us. Got
it. That's fantastic, and I think it's a world that a lot of us don't really get a chance to do because we're transacting or having conversations over Zoom, right? So awesome that you'll have an opportunity to see your customers in person in that realm. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so let's switch gears here a little bit, because your team is very seasoned and subject matter experts in what they're doing, because as we discussed before, the actual end product that your customers are developing requires a lot of technical and specialized knowledge. So how do you select and hire for the right industry experience to ensure that you can be the trusted advisor, that consultative mindset? So talk to us about what that process is like, and who do you select for on your team?
Yeah, and I'll preface this again with another sort of caveat. The software solutions that we provide, you mentioned the millions of dollars an individual sale can bring to us, and our revenues are quite large. We are truly selling to our customer base, and the global accounts that I manage are names and logos that every single one listening to this call would probably recognize throughout the entire world. We have, whether it's the 9 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world, all of the super majors in the oil and gas space. It just, the list goes on and on of nameplate recognizable customers. So when we hire a CSM, we are truly looking for someone that is able to be consultative, that's able to go pretty deep. If you are a CSM in a space where you're selling and transacting in much smaller dollar figures or amounts, or your customers aren't this size, no slight to that. I mean, everyone has their own space, but when I'm answering this question, I'm answering in light of the fact that we are working with the biggest of the big customers that are out there. So when we hire, the thing that we really try to do is prioritize the industry experience side of things. If we can hire a person maybe that doesn't even know our software, but has worked in one of those power plants for the last 20 years or so, and has truly walked around with a wrench or a tool and done plant tours and maintenance, and really understands how these rotating equipment operate and what the critical process parameters may be, and how to understand the KPIs, what's good and what's not. If we can bring those kinds of folks in and train them on our software and give them the lay of the land to be able to talk intelligently about our tools, they will be in a much better position to interact with our customers. I want to relay this back to a story I think you and I had previously talked about, but one of our CSMs comes from the oil and gas space. He had probably a decade or more of working. I believe it was at ExxonMobil. Lots of experience, lots of understanding from the chemical process side and how these big assets and pieces of equipment work. He was the CSM for one of his customers was a wind farm. So not specific experience in wind farms, but he had a really good understanding of the maintenance side of things. And this wind farm customer, they had lots and lots of wind turbines out on the West Coast, and they were spinning as the wind blew. And effectively, their maintenance strategy was simply to look out the window, and if the blades were spinning, all was good. And if one turbine was not spinning, okay, we've got to roll a truck. We've got to go figure out what's going on. And through his experience, the CSM's experience in the oil and gas space, and understanding the criticality of maintenance and holding the vendor accountable for the output of their particular machine, he was able to work with them on a maintenance strategy of basically collecting the megawatts that these machines were producing, looking at reading the wind speed for the day, and being able to easily see how much these machines, each wind turbine, was physically producing, but then mirroring or matching that back up with the manufacturer's expected power curve. And they were able to find a number of instances where the wind turbines themselves were not performing to manufacturer specifications. So now they were able to go back and work with, I think it was the GE turbines in that case. It doesn't matter who the manufacturer was, but work with the vendor of those turbines to tune them, to better fit them for the actual ambient environmental conditions that they were operating in, to get maximum output. In this day and age, when every company is trying to do more with less, if you can increase the overall equipment effectiveness, the OEE, and get more yield from whatever your piece of equipment or your asset is, extend the life of that thing, or lower the maintenance costs, or roll less trucks and maintenance people to it. All of these things help your operating costs and potentially your output. That was a great situation of this CSM who came from industry, understood maybe an oil and gas specific use case, but applied it in this wind farm customer to some tremendous outcomes there. And I think in that one case, in a single year, they were able to realize about a $12.5 million opportunity win. That was just, I mean, you talk about paying for the software pretty quickly. If you're gaining in 1 year $12.5 million on a single use case, it's pretty powerful stuff. So kudos to him for this win. But You leveraging his experience and his industry knowledge that this is possible, this is what we should be doing, and being consultative. He already had the customer's trust, and they felt he had their best experience and output in mind. He was able to really connect with them and push this solution to some really tremendous outcomes.
That is fantastic to hear. And I think at that scale of production and and revenue, it makes a huge difference, right? How that knowledge can really translate to real results. And it's I'm sure that customers overjoyed to have that experience. And that's probably why they're buying from you, right? It's that relationship building paired with that consultative understanding of not just how they're trying to run their business, but the nuances of it. That's super powerful.
Just to close out that story, that's a really fantastic example of the CSM not leading with, here's the latest shiny new feature that we've produced or we've developed or we've written, but really leading with outcomes. Here's how our software can help you where you are in your particular business, help you be better, cheaper, faster, whatever you want to, however you want to measure that particular thing. That's what he led with, and that's what really allowed the customer to sink their teeth into this solution.
Got it. Fascinating. Cool. Well, let's take a more of a operational view into your world here, and I'm curious what a land and expand motion looks like for your team at AVEVA, because you're serving the entire end-to-end business process that someone would have. And I guess to kick it off, could you just give us a little view into, what is your team structure and what solutions are they really driving forward in this world?
Yeah, so a couple of things there, and I'll caveat it again. Every single company is going to do customer segmentation differently and structure their CSM team a little bit differently, but just a little background for what we do. So we follow the typical TSIA layer model: land, adopt, expand, renew. That's pretty common. But we have segmented our customers in such a way. We built this customer pyramid with global accounts at the top. That's what my team looks after. So on a yearly basis, there's somewhere around 50 accounts that are designated as global accounts because of their size, because of their worldwide locations, because of their spend with us, or the white space, the opportunity that's there, the amount of solutions they use, the executive presence and buy-in that we have, a number of criteria that goes into specifying a global account. But those accounts are, they've effectively already been landed, right? The CSM is doing less about the landing. Now, with that being said, in today's M&A world, right, companies are acquiring and being acquired left and right. So a land mechanism in my world might look differently than another AVEVA CSM who's in the next tier down, maybe our named accounts or our growth accounts, or going down the pyramid a little bit. The experience gets a little bit different. But within global accounts, I've got a couple of good examples with some CSMs on my team today, working with a worldwide super major oil and gas company. They had our software. It was pervasive throughout a lot of their enterprise. They had acquired a new company over in Africa. The CSM is here in the United States. And because of the CSM experience, and I mean, sales was a big player here as well. It wasn't only the CSM, but because of the CSM's positioning of our tools in the past, because of the outcomes that they had helped the customer achieve, when this oil and gas super major acquired this new company or subsidiary in Africa, getting our software in was a no-brainer. So our CSM was able to travel there, help them get with the adoption phase and get it rolled out very quickly. But that was a perfect example of the land phase. It looks a little bit different than net new customer, where you're hunting in a true greenfield environment.
That makes sense. And I guess at the scale you all play, the acquisitions are probably a lot more common as a impetus for good change and not a churn risk, because you're so deeply embedded into your organization's operating procedures, where it's opportunity and not so much risk. That's great.
Correct.
Talk to us about the onboarding process and the adoption, as you mentioned, that framework you're using. I can imagine it's long and complex and a lot of value consulting driven for the onboarding, but Can you spend a minute or two on what that looks like after someone buys AVEVA?
Yeah, so that in and of itself is changing. AVEVA for years had been strictly on-prem software. And with the size and scale of what you can imagine our customers are leveraging our tools today, to your point earlier, churn was not a big thing. We have a very low churn on the on-prem side because of the pervasiveness, because of the IT costs and spend to get our systems stood up and rolled out. And when it's involved in a regulatory environment like pharmaceuticals, you don't change that overnight. If you have something that's working to produce whatever your pharmaceutical output, whatever drug or whatever you're seeking for there, we stay installed. So what we're seeing now, we're AVEVA is shifting to be more of a SaaS type organization where the barriers to entry, the barriers of IT, the barriers of spend are lowered dramatically, right? So the onboarding motion is ramping up dramatically. There's a huge push. Our executives understand and are thankfully putting a lot of emphasis and support financially into the CSM team here, but understanding the importance of a solid onboarding experience to get the customer using the SaaS tool as quickly as possible. Just because they sign that first check, that first subscription dollar that comes in, if the end users aren't using it, they're not burning down the credits against that agreement. Churn is going to be a very real thing. So we are in the middle of a pretty pronounced pivot from the days of on-prem where it was very sticky and very much you just sort of it rolled along. It's almost self-renewed to where the onboarding experience is just absolutely critical. So our CSMs have to be a little bit more a little bit quicker to the punch, a little bit more proactive, a little bit more on top of what did the customer buy and why did they buy it and what is their timeline and getting our internal resources aligned to that strategy. But the adoption phase here is squarely in the middle of still some old prem customers where we can kind of go slow and help them ramp up in this pretty tedious consulting process that you mentioned, to cloud where you sign up and you log in and it's all there, it's all sort of ready to go. So that's a very different type of motion, and we're trying to balance both sides of the coin there.
I see. Yeah, that's imagine a massive migration effort. Do you have a team in place that's dedicated on your customer success organization that's primarily focused on migrating, or what does that function look like in your existing engagements?
So we've done a few things here, and AVEVA thankfully has understood the power of not just customer success management but CS ops. So the CS operations side is building out, whether it's the integration of some of our back end tools or process or automation to introduce scale. Whether it could be slide decks, could be other sorts of materials to help the CSM and the customer truly get to that new place. I think that's probably been the biggest shift to help the CSM get ready. It's not all on us to figure it out and make it work. The CS ops teams are from my experience and what I see in my limited views to what other companies are doing, CS ops is growing in influence and are true measures of success. If you have a good CS ops team, you can really make a lot of progress.
That makes sense. Great. Well, appreciate you sharing all that rich insight there. I'm sure everybody who's listening to this will get a lot from it, especially if they're serving that high-end upmarket engagement model.
Sure.
Cool. All right, Glenn, we're going to go to a next section of our show here. It's an audience favorite where I ask our guests some quick rapid-fire questions. I want 1 to 2 words each, all right? I know it's tough, but keep it to 1 or 2 words if you can. The first thing that comes to your mind when I say this, and we'll let it rip. Okay. So starting off with, what is the best metric of success for CS?
Probably have to go with NRR or net revenue retention there. That seems to be all encompassing and a pretty good one.
Love it. Worst metric of success for CS?
A little bit of a controversial one, but I'm going to say NPS, the net promoter score, right? I'm on the downside of that one.
I am with you there. What's the most underrated part of CS?
I'm going to just a couple more than two words here. I don't think executives truly realize the potential for a growth engine that CSMs can be. And I think that's where we will have to exploit that to get more financial spend from our executives on our teams. But the most underrated part to me is the ability for the CSM to be that growth engine for the company.
Cool. What is the most overrated part of CS?
And probably a little bit of a controversial answer here, but I'm going to say the tools, whether it's Gainsight, Tatango, Churn Zero, Client Success, not because of the tools themselves, but unless you know, there's a reason they say people, process, technology, right? The PPT, start with your people, build the process, then go to the technology. And I think many times CSMs are rushing to get the tools rolled out too quickly.
I've seen that play out, unfortunately, too many times. Okay, next question. Current state of CS.
I think the best word to describe that is unsettled. Thankfully, at AVEVA, the exec team is putting money into our group and getting us the people and the technology that we need. But unfortunately, there is a number of companies, whether it be laying off or at least standing pat. I think unsettled is probably, we're in a bit of a flux state at the moment.
What about the future of CS?
Well, I don't think you can watch any podcast or webcast without the two letters AI, right? So how will you or your CS team incorporate AI? How will you make your teams quicker to the outcomes? The future of CS to me is all about leveraging AI to the best that you can.
Hearing that one a lot. What is the best CS book or podcast?
I have one of each there. So Nick Mehta, the CEO of Gainsight, wrote for me the book on customer success called Customer Success. He starts out with a great story of where customer success came from, rolling back to 2004 with Salesforce and Mark Benioff realizing the importance of a CSM team. That's probably the best book I read, especially if you're a SaaS type organization. Nick really does a fantastic job of laying that out. Podcast or webinar, I'm going to have to go with Success Coaching and Andrew Marks. If anyone's in the community knows him, their logo is just awesome to me. That it's basically a donkey with a plunger on its head, and Andrew likes to say what it encapsulates is even a jackass with the right tools can be a unicorn. So he doesn't take himself too seriously, but he has great output and great outcomes.
I love it. All right, last question of this section. What is the best community for CS leaders to join?
I think the two that I get the most out of, there's a LinkedIn forum called the Customer Success Forum, and then Gain, Grow, Retain are really fantastic for any CS leader. Both of them have the ability to input what's troubling you, what are you struggling to figure out, where are you stuck, putting those in there. And the community truly is a family where folks are just willing to jump in and give you insight or solutions, or at least guidance to how they would have solved it.
I love those, both of them. All right, Glenn, well, going to end the show here with the final question and then give you a chance to plug anything you'd like. So the question is, we're in this era of a lot of change, right? CS, you alluded to it earlier. If you could make one prediction about what the future of customer success is going to hold, what would it be?
I think we're at a precipice where we're going to see a pretty good divide here. I talked about our customer pyramid and how we're doing segmentation, right? And you have the top of the pyramid where we call it the white glove treatment, the customers that are high spend, highly strategic. We are, in some cases, it's a one-to-one relationship, a single CSM to a single customer or account. That's the top of your customer pyramid, but that doesn't scale. You're going to have your long tail customers, your low spend, your low revenue customers, where you've got to provide self-service and a digital experience. So I think we're going to see a divide that continues to grow between the human side of CSMs that are close to the customer, that know the customer's business inside and out and can truly be consultative. And then the other side is to me where CS ops will thrive, where the self-service model, that digital experience, that truly scalable, one-to-many type of an approach is just going to be so critical. And I think for me, that's probably the one thing that divide is just going to continue to grow exponentially, especially with the AI push that's so pervasive today.
I fundamentally resonate with that, and there is it ultimately benefits the customer to address the engagement model uniquely based off the size and where they are, and not bundled up, right? We segment our customers into tiers, but the way we engage them also needs to be segmented. You have multiple segments within one customer, but it's important to identify
100%.
there are multiple segments, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Great. Well, Glenn, this has been incredible. I'd love to give you an opportunity to plug anything you'd like with the audience. If there's any content you're producing or anything you'd like to share with them, floor is yours.
Yeah, so I appreciate this, Sagar. So I'm not at the moment doing any success coaching or anything like that I wanted to promote for myself, but I wanted to take the opportunity. If you've been in the CS community with for any length of time, you probably know the name Mickey Powell, the Chief Technology Officer at Update AI. He recently suffered some pretty tragic news. He lost his mom and his older brother to two separate medical situations within a few days' time. There is a GoFundMe for him out there. I don't know Mick. He's not a friend of mine personally. I've talked to him a couple of times one-on-one. I've been a ton of his webinars. He does so much for customer success. If you have the ability to help, that would be awesome. Even if not, some encouraging words to help him. He's going through some pretty tough times. So just want to direct any help that people may have to him. The way to find it, if you can find me on LinkedIn, just Google my name, Glenn Hummel, 2 N's, 2 M's. You can find me on LinkedIn. I've got a link to the GoFundMe there. Just a tragic story. My heart breaks for him and his family situation. So we exist in a vacuum. Sometimes we think we're heads down on our own job, but we are part of a wider community, and if we can help, certainly would be a good thing to do for Mickey's benefit.
That is really heartbreaking, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll definitely go check that out. And for folks who are watching this, it's still up by the time this gets posted. Please check it out. Yeah, I think we'll keep them in our thoughts. Thank you, Glenn.
I appreciate that, Sagar. Yep. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for taking some time out of your busy day to speak with us, and looking forward to future deep dive conversations.
100%. This was fun, and if anyone's listening and wants to learn more or connect with me directly, I'm happy to make those connections and reach out via LinkedIn, and we can certainly set up some additional time. But this was great. Thanks for the question, Sagar. It was engaging. I enjoyed doing it, and if I can help more, it's if we can help the wider community, one person at a time, that's the way to go.
Love it. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Thank you, Sagar. Have a good day.